Hey YouTube, welcome to this next installment of the Heavy On blog. Please excuse the audio and the video quality for this video. We're dropping to 15 frames per second on this one because the entire video is being done on the Logitech C910 webcam. So it's basically a trial run to see how it works out for doing quick on the fly videos. I didn't have a lot of time with the TBM869 as it was only given to me on loan for 2 to 3 days. So basically I did the best that I could with the time frame that I had. I've done some basic comparisons to other meters, which will be coming out in later episodes. But in this episode, we're doing the brief review of the Brymen TBM869, rebranded Toptronic here in South Africa by Brymen Toptronic. And I just want to say a shout out and thanks to Brymen Toptronic, Durban branch, for assisting with getting the meter to me so that we can do the comparisons and so that we can make this video review of the meter. My thoughts on the meter will be at the end of the video, and you guys can decide for yourself if you think that it's a worthwhile purchase. In my opinion, I've had no issues with the Brymen meters, and I've had fantastic service from the sort of brand importer being Brymen Toptronic in South Africa. So draw your own conclusions from that. So let's get straight into that review. It's a very brief review of the TBM869. Hopefully in the future I will purchase one to go alongside some of my other stuff and we can do a more in-depth review of it. But for now, a basic look and review of the Brymen TBM869. Now before we go to the actual meter itself, I just want to talk a little bit about these probes that come with the TBM869. As far as markings go, the only thing I see written on them is BTC, and then they come with these really nice caps for the Cat 4 that clip off, and you have these somewhat gold-plated type probes. They're very sharp, very nice. The lead quality is superb. It's pure silicon leads, so they actually feel really nice. And the strain relief, like most of the flukes, is built into the actual probe and into the socket. I really like the quality of these. They're actually very well made. Big thumbs up to you guys, Brymen, for supplying a really nice set of leads with the TBM869. I want to find out about actually buying these aftermarket because I could probably make use of quite a few of these in my workshop and in my field kits, etc. So I'm going to find out about that. I will let you guys know in a later video. But really fantastic quality leads from a cheaper meter for a change. Really cool. So the TBM869. First, before I go into the bench review of the meter, I'm just going to talk a little bit about my experience with Brymen meters. Don't get me wrong, fluke meters are absolutely mouth-watering. I've owned various fluke meters in the past. Currently, I have a few fluke meters which I make use of. I have the Fluke 113, the Fluke 117, the Fluke 177, the Fluke 179, the Fluke 189, and I'm currently also testing out a Fluke 289 to decide. And so far so good with that one, but that's for a later episode. My experience with Brymen meters goes back to when I was looking for a meter that could do my basic measurements as a secondary or third bench meter to another meter that I had. And I picked up a TBM829 from a second-hand shop at a really good price. The meter was still within calibration. I since had it recalibrated and everything, so I was happy with it. And I must admit, touch wood, to today that meter hasn't given me an ounce of problems. That TBM829 is still in my workshop, still being used daily for doing voltage, current, whatever. It does pretty much everything that I need it to do. It's a 6,000 count, I think it is, multimeter, but it has pretty much all the functionality of the 869. So that Brymen meter has done me well. It's not going anywhere. I won't easily get rid of it. I enjoy using it, but it has fallen a bit to the wayside as a primary bench meter, but it is still one of my favorite meters to use. So because I'm doing a lot of fluke stuff, please don't get the impression, hey, Dion's gone fluke nuts. You know what works for me works for me. The fact that I really enjoy the Fluke 289 and the Fluke 189 is my personal thing. I really love those meters and I can highly recommend them, and I'll talk about that later. But in the same token, I can also highly recommend the Brymen TBM829, the 812, the 811. Well, not so much the 811 because it's not true RMS, but the 812, the 829, the 869, the 867. Any of those meters are fantastic value for money. You will not get those features for that same money in any other brand, hands down. So if you're looking for a reasonably priced meter that's going to do you good with fantastic protection, Cat 4 1000 volts, Brymen is your man. So let's get on to the review. Right, the first things first, I'll talk about the spec on the box of the Brymen TBM869 at the end of the video. But for now, I just want to talk a little bit about the meter itself. It comes in the same sort of form factor as all the nice decent meters do, this sort of rounded top with a slimmer bottom for holding. The rounded top is basically to accommodate the bigger display and still to have a nice grippable meter for basically hand holding or whatever the case may be. It is the very nice solid feeling rubber holster that the meter comes in. It can be removed from the holster like I've showed you guys in previous videos of the 812, 829, etc. It's the same form factor. In fact, the meter for all intents and purposes is kind of the same as the 829 with the addition of this VFD function and of course the 500,000 count display, which is one of a kind basically here in South Africa. So the meter is very well made, it's solid, it's a nice screen, as you can see there, nice contrast on the display, etc. So as you see, it's got that really nice crisp display. The backlight is really good on these meters. I really enjoy using it. Contrast is excellent on the display. Even if we go for a dual display function like DC and AC, which does slow it down, you can still see all the details quite nice and crisp. Backlight off. As you can see, information's there. Bearing in mind, we still have the screen guard on. One thing I dislike about the meters is the slightly rounded bezel, or quite a round bezel, and that tends to catch light on either edge or whatever the case may be. When you, there you go, you can see it there when you're trying to do a measurement, etc., compared to a flat display which doesn't catch it as badly. But still, for all intents and purposes, this meter is a really nice feeling, nice quality plastics on here. It's hard to explain how it feels. If you've held a Brymen meter before, you'll know what I'm talking about. This new form factor compared to the old original Brymen meter form factor is much better. The plastic quality is better, the button quality is really good, etc., and everything works very well. So yeah, that's what we can say about it for now. And lastly, just before we get into the full-on review, as you can see, Cat 4 1000 volts. Yeah, just a nice feeling meter. If you've never used one of these, I highly suggest you get your hands on one or go to your electronics store and check them out. If you can't, they are available on my website. The link will be shared once the website goes live. And yeah, that's about it. Let's get straight onto the bench now and actually get into the review. We're just going to go through some of the basic stuff like volts, DC measure, maybe AC from the mains, etc. We'll do some frequency measurements, some duty cycle measurements with some square wave stuff, maybe a resistor, a capacitor, and check the continuity buzzer. So let's go. So as you can see here, the Brymen TBM869, the tilting bale is quite stable. The meter won't easily fall over. It has a really nice clip-in system, basically using the rubber holster to keep it in place. It can also be rotated to use as a hanger on a hook, etc., for if it's needed. Like I said, this meter is capable of VFD, volts AC with frequency and dBm, volts DC with AC components if need be, or adding the two together, millivolts DC with duty cycle, hertz frequency, which is basically your logic level stuff, PWM signals, pulse width modulation, millivolts AC with hertz and dBm, T1 and T2, so you can have two simultaneous probes plugged in. Then you've got diode capacitance, conductivity, resistance, then you've got your continuity tester, then you've got your amps, AC, DC, and frequency, milliamps AC/DC frequency, microamps AC/DC frequency, etc. And with a dual display, of course, you can show more than one thing at a time. So let's get a closer look now and do some DC measurements using this meter. Hello YouTube. Right, so onto the TBM869 DC voltage check. I'm just putting it up against the Fluke 289 at the moment to see how it compares with the voltage. And as you can see right down here on the bottom of the scale, we've got 1,0553 volts DC. So I'm seeing a difference of 200 microvolts or 0.2 millivolts, which is almost nothing when it comes to the grand scale of things. So let's just pick this up to around 3 odd volts, or nearly 4 volts, and you can see 3,7948, 7954. So you're seeing almost a 1 millivolt difference between the two. Go up to around, well, let's keep it to, at the moment the Brymen is in the 40,000 count or 50,000 count mode, which is more or less the same as a 289, but let's just go to 3,334, and as you can see both meters are identical. The only difference is here we can go up a digit on the Brymen to show it as such. So yeah, that is possible. I'm sure you guys did notice that rounding issue with the 869. It doesn't really round off, but just to show you guys that again, if we, as you can see, it's drifting a little bit. I'm going to go to a more stable power supply so we can get a more accurate indication of what's actually going on there. So let's go power up. Okay, as you can see we've got 5,0011. Let it settle, and you can see a bit of a difference, but for all intents and purposes they're pretty accurate together. This one is running around a bit at the end here, but like I say, I've just started up the meter, so for a direct comparison we're going to go back there and we're going to slide it up to around 10 volts, give or take. Okay, we got 9.931, 9.931, 930, 931, more or less the same. Let's bring it up a little bit more. Let's try and get it almost exactly on 10 volts, but with the multi-turn part even, this can be tricky sometimes. But as you can see, both meters are sitting next to each other quite nicely, more or less the same sort of accuracy. The only difference being again with the Brymen, you can see there the difference. As you can see, it's 010, 10.010. There's absolutely no rounding, because technically that should now be a 1, and it isn't. So okay, the rounding off doesn't work, it's just kind of chopping off the last digit. But again, both meters coping quite nicely. Let's sort of go up to the end of this power supply's capability. So we got 31,523, 528. Everything's looking pretty decent there on the DC side of things so far. So one thing I am noticing is on the Fluke my analog bar graph is stable, and on the 869 it is moving slightly. So I'm not sure if that is an issue with the meter or if that is an issue with the power supply, but I know this power supply is very clean, so that shouldn't be a problem. And I have picked this up on my 829 as well, where that meter sort of bounces around a little bit. Maybe it's between values or something, I don't know. Let's try and bring it down a little bit and see. Yeah, there you go. And it stabilizes. Obviously that analog bar graph is sitting somewhere between levels, and that's what causes that issue over there. So yeah, no problems at all. Both meters kept up quite nicely there on the DC side of things. So I think next we need to just do an AC mains measurement and see how the two stack up against each other. It should be fine. Should be no problems at all. What we'll do is we'll do an AC 230 volts mains on the 869, and then just see how it reads that with no problem. I don't foresee any issues, as it is a 1000 volt Cat 4 meter, so measuring 230 volts or even 400 volts should be no problem at all. And then of course we're going to look at some of the other things on the 869, such as the duty cycle, frequencies, diode test, capacitance test, etc., and just basically check out the basic functionality of the meter. Like I said, it is a pretty decent meter for the money, so I'm thinking it's going to be quite enjoyable to use. Okay, so the next stop on the 869 review is we're just going to test a diode quickly. So we swing the meter over here to the diode test function and push the select yellow button to get it into the diode mode. Now we're going to check reverse, and we should expect an overload. There it is. And we're going to check forward voltage, and there you have it, 0.5178, whatever it settles on. Okay, so that's pretty good. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to check a NPN transistor, positive to base, collector 0.5, emitter 0.5, and then the opposite way around, overload. Okay, so that's happy days. Now I have a resistor in here which I use pretty regularly for checking resistance. It's my 10.2 ohm resistor. So what we're basically going to do here is we're going to slide across to resistance. We're in continuity. Oh, while we're in continuity, we're just going to check the speed. Although it's not quite latching, it catches every bit of noise, no problem. It's very quick, so that's quite nice. And then to get into resistance mode, we're pretty much going to push that, and that's conductivity, and there's our basic resistance mode. Now we know we're expecting 10.2 ohms on here, so 10.18 ohms, it's 20 milliohms under. It's good enough for me. With accuracy, that's like spot on. The nice thing you'll notice about this meter again is it can go down to 10 milliohm accuracy, or 0.01 ohms, whereas 90% of multimeters only go down to 100 milliohms or 0.1 ohms. So yeah, that's quite nice. And as you saw from there, auto range, bang, it's quick, so it gets the job done really nicely. That's nice. Good one there, Brymen and Helaman Titan. So next we're just going to have a look at a couple of little capacitors. The first one in the pile is I'll tell you now, a 10 microfarad electrolytic. So we need to go back across to here, and then we need to go and make a selection to the capacitor value. Now, like I said, this is a 10 microfarad capacitor, and we're connected, and we're showing 9.11 microfarads. So it's within its spec. That's okay. What else can we check? Let's check the diode test function to see if we can power on an LED, because that's something that the fluke meters do very, very well, and it's something that is really good. I mean, you've got a good forward voltage or forward current. So here we've got our LED, and as you can see, it can read it as a 1.766 volt drop, and the LED is barely coming on, like just barely. So the good news is it can actually test an LED. Some meters can't, as I'm sure you're aware of. So yeah, that's quite nice. I'm not going to go into current measurements and stuff like that, but we are going to do some duty cycle measurements and see how that strings out. Let me just hook up my function generator and I'll be right back. Alright, so just talking about some measurements of duty cycle and frequency. You will notice here we've got the fluke hooked up just as a comparison. I'm injecting a 1 kilohertz, 1,0029 to be exact, from the signal generator up there, and we're pretty much throwing that into these meters over here. And as you can see, the fluke is spot on there. The Brymen was. It's actually it's somewhere between, because right now the function generator's gone down to 1,0028, so it's right on the ball here. There you can see they've both come down now. So yeah, no problems with that at all. The fluke is also giving me a DC voltage equivalent, or RMS voltage basically, of that square wave, which is currently sitting at a 50% duty cycle. Now, if we were to hit the select button over here, we would see our duty cycle. Now in here, I need to just check how we do this. There we've got our duty cycle. And as you can see, they're both showing a little bit differently. I'm going to vary the duty cycle now. I'm going to bring it down. That's the lowest this generator will go. As you can see, pretty close. And then we're going to go up. And again, pretty close. And then we're going to knock it back down onto. And there you go. So as you can see, the few advantages, of course, here are the display, and of course you can actually see what's going on. On this one here, I don't think you can run in a dual display mode with this function. I think it's either frequency or duty cycle. We don't have an option over there. But still, the Brymen TBM869, perfect for doing your PWM projects and the like, and just for keeping an eye on your pulse width modulated signals, etc. So yeah, that's quite a nice function to have, of course. And yeah, it's really showing itself as to be a nice professional bench level multimeter. Yeah, let's carry on with the review. Now, something else of interest, just before we go off the function generator, I'm going to switch it up to about 10.120 kilohertz. As you can see, both the meters, no problems at all. And then, if I go up to 100 kilohertz, you'll notice the fluke drop off, and this one at 110 carrying on. If I'm not mistaken, I think the fluke kills off at 100 kilohertz. So let's go to 99.778, and we still have nothing. 98, and and bearing in mind this is kilohertz, okay. So at about 97, 98 kilohertz, the fluke taps out. But you would notice there that the 869 keeps going. So I'm going to push my luck, and I'm going to hit the 1 megahertz button on this signal generator. And as you can see, I'm generating 1,1109, and there it is, 1,1109 megahertz on the Brymen TBM869. As for how high that can go, I suppose we could get it from the spec, but I saw at 2 megahertz, just over 2 megahertz, it craps out. So I'd call 2 megahertz its upper limit, which is actually not bad for a multimeter. That's quite impressive, in fact. So yeah, well done Brymen for getting that one right. Really nice. Right, so when it comes to those functions, as you can see, the Brymen actually performed very well on frequency. So we're going to go back to our sort of defaults. We're going to go across to volts AC, and what we're going to do next is we're going to technically plug the meter in and just see our AC voltage measurement. And what is nice again with the Brymens is that you've got your 49.94 hertz duty, well, not duty cycle, but your cycle frequency, and you're showing your 219.71 volts AC. Now, something else that's quite nice, let me just rotate this camera back to center. So something else that's quite nice that I appreciate is having that frequency on display. Yes, I know the fluke can do it. The Brymen meter sells for just over 6,000 Rand. The fluke equivalent type meters that I was comparing against, like the 289, sells for quite a bit over 10,000 Rand mark, but it is definitely worth it. We'll talk about that in the 289 review and in the comparison between the 869 and the 289. Right now we're just doing the review of the Brymen 869 multimeter, and as you can see, everything's looking really good. Now, I don't know what this volts AC VFD is, but it reads our same sort of level voltage. Maybe it's for ghost voltages, I don't know. The beauty is if you go to DC volts, as you can see, it can't get it, but we can select our AC voltage component of our DC volts. But there you go, it shots over quite a bit over there, but there's your AC measurement right there. It's a nice function of it, if you ask me. Now, we all know these meters survive switching them around between all the different ranges, and they recover quite nicely, so I'm not too concerned about that. It's kind of designed for it, and it does a wonderful job of it. So my basic conclusion on this TBM869 multimeter is that it's versatile, it's reasonably priced at like I said, they go for just over 6,000 Rand locally, or it'll be sort of in the region of probably between $400 and $500. I'd have to verify that, but give or take. The functionality is really good. It has all the nice resolution that you could ever want. I mean, that is your standard sort of resolution. And if you go to high resolution mode, wrong button, sorry. And if you go to high resolution mode, then you get all those extra digits. But again, only if you go into the basic DC function of the meter. Let me just turn that backlight off. Okay, you got your standard mode. Only works in the DC only, when you're displaying only the DC. And you can go across to your 500,000 counts, which is absolutely beautiful for measuring down to very low level signals. Practicality of doing that, I'm not so sure about, because I find 40-50,000 count meters to be more than sufficient for everyday electronics design and repair work, etc. The meter does also come with the attachment where you can attach a USB cable or COM cable to it, so you can attach it to its software. The tilting bail, it's the standard sort of rubber mounted one. It's not going to easily break off. It's actually quite well made, and it can be flipped upside down, so you can basically hang the meter when you're working on a hook or something like that. The meter does have the COM jack warnings, so if you plug in the wrong, let's say you want volts and you connect a positive lead to the amps jack, it's going to give you a warning to let you know there's a problem, which is really cool. Basically, because if you were to do something like that and try and measure voltage, you're going to make some nice magic smoke from the fuse inside here, and you may possibly injure yourself depending on what sort of levels or what sort of voltages you're working on. So if you're looking for a really decent meter with good sort of support and a good build, if you want to call it that, they're very well made, then the TBM869 is a fantastic meter. If you don't need the 500,000 count resolution, I would recommend going for the TBM812, because it's also a fantastic meter. And of course, the TBM812 comes with a lifetime warranty. The TBM869 over here does not. So that's a bit of a strange one, but it's the way it is. It's the way the cookie crumbles, as they say. The leads that came with this meter, very nice quality. I really like those leads. In fact, I would possibly use them over some of the other leads that I have from various brands. Yeah, all in all, a nice multimeter for a very accurate sort of DC reading. I'm just going to read through some of the spec again with you guys now, just so that you guys can hear what the general spec is of this meter, and then you can make your decisions for yourself. Just out of interest, this meter is available on my online store, which is being put together now. So if you're looking to acquire one of these meters, get in touch with me and I can help put one in your hands. They are fantastic pieces of kit, and I can guarantee you won't be unhappy with it. So in final conclusion, the 869 comes nicely boxed in one of these nice colorful packages. You do get some optional stuff such as the hanger, which you can see in the top image over there. You can flip the bail upside down, you can store the hanger, etc. And you do get some nice software for the meter, which is available as a separate purchase. So the basic spec of the meter is basically It is a 500,000 count, large, easy to read LCD display. I can't argue with that. That's really good. It's got a fast measurement, 5 samples per second, fully auto ranging. That only applies when you're reading, for instance, DC only. No other measurements. It can read at that sort of speed. 100%. I agree with that. Dual digital display, yes. Fantastic, nice display. 41 segment analog bar graph, updates at 60 updates per second, 60 times per second. That is fast. It is really good. Like I say, at first I thought I saw some flicker on the bar graph, but I think that was actually just that it was sitting somewhere between on the power supply. But it also shows you the update speed. I mean, if it's somewhere between and it's updating like that, then you know that it's pretty quick. Optional purchase USB cable and software. Fantastic. Intelligent auto power off, data hold, relative zero mode, so you can sort of cancel out any lead resistance if you want to, whatever the case may be. Audible and visible beep jack. I showed you guys that function to warn you if you've got the wrong plug in the wrong place. AC and AC plus DC true RMS conversion. 100 kilohertz AC plus DC voltage bandwidth. Okay. 0.02% high basic DC voltage accuracy. So the meter is very, very, very accurate. I can't argue with that. VFD and VFD volts and VFD hertz measures fundamental voltage and hertz of most variable frequency drives. There's your variable frequency drive, that VFD function on there. Quite nice. It does come with dual probe inputs for type K temperature probes. In the box on the 869 it is included one. It record min-max readings, calculates average reading over time, and auto ranging. Crest, instantaneous peak hold, maximum readings, auto ranging. Paper white backlighted, large, easy to read LCD display. We saw the backlights on this thing. It is actually really nice. No complaints there. DBM's reading. Yes, we know that function's available. DC volts from 0.001 millivolts to 1000 volts. AC volts from 0.01 millivolts to 1000 volts. I'm not going to go through all this other nonsense over here. But the ohms will basically go from 0.01 ohms to 50 mega ohms. I'm just looking here for frequency. Line level frequency says 10 hertz to 200 kilohertz. But logic level frequency, funny enough, says from 5 hertz to 1 megahertz. And as you guys saw, it actually does up to 2 megahertz quite comfortably. No problems at all there. So a little bit underrating there, Brymen. Because this meter, yeah, I don't know if it's specific to this one only, but this meter quite easily went up to 2 megahertz. So that 1 megahertz on the back is actually quite a conservative value. Logic level duty cycle, diode tester, blah blah blah, all the fire retardant case, etc. Yes, happy days. 1000 volts general ohm capacitance input protection, 1000 volts high braking capacity fuses, transient protection up to 12 kilovolts for 1.2/50 microsecond lightning surges. LVD meets EN 61010, whatever, but basically Cat4 1 kilovolt. So if you're looking for a nice quality safe meter, I can suggest the TBM869. If you don't want to spend a lot of money, this meter will definitely do the job for you. And yeah, that concludes the very brief review with the time that I've had with the TBM869. I've only had the meter in my hands for about 2 days, excluding the long weekend where I didn't do anything because I spent the time with the family and doing home projects which needed to be done. But basically the Brymen TBM869 is a meter worth a mention, and if you're looking for something with high accuracy for your bench for just on 6,000 Rand locally in South Africa, I can highly recommend this meter. Thanks for watching everybody, and until next time, take care.